I arrived at the Holloway mansion just after sunset. Snow was already falling in slow, heavy flakes. The sky was dim and colorless, like the world had been drained. My boots crunched over the fresh snow as I walked up the long, unshoveled path. The mansion looked like a frozen shadow against the hill. I could see my breath spreading in front of me, mixing with the winter air. I was here to investigate the winter guests, a local legend, a haunting that only appeared on the first snow of each year. I wasn't sure if I believed that kind of seasonal haunting, but I needed the work, and the Holloway family paid well for discretion. As I reached the front steps, the wind shifted. A cold, hollow voice drifted through the porch. It wasn't loud, more like someone whispering right behind my ear. "Welcome back." I froze in place. I had never been here before, yet the house spoke to me like it remembered me. I tried to brush it off as nerves, as the wind, and as anything that made logical sense. But the front door creaked open on its own, slowly, as if inviting me inside. I stepped into the house. The warmth I expected never came. The air inside was somehow colder than the winter outside. My flashlight beam swept across antique furniture draped with sheets. Dust floated through the air like pale snowflakes. The floorboards groaned under my weight, and then I heard them. Soft, distant, whispering voices coming from above me. Voices that didn't sound angry or malicious, just aware. Aware that I had arrived, aware that I was alone, and aware that from this moment on, I belonged to this house until sunrise. I stood in the foyer for a long moment, listening, breathing slowly, trying to figure out if the voices upstairs were human or something else. The house felt alive, breathing with me, watching me. I clicked on my recorder and held it out. "Initial sweep," I whispered. "No visible threats, but I'm not alone." My voice shook more than I wanted. I started up the main staircase. Each step groaned under my weight. It felt like the wood was reacting to me, pushing back, or warning me. Halfway up, I noticed something strange. The temperature dropped so sharply, my breath turned into thick fog. It poured from my mouth like smoke from a fire. The whispering voices grew louder. Still distant, still unfocused, like a broken choir practicing behind closed doors. At the top of the stairs, a long hallway stretched into darkness. Old portraits lined the walls. Their faces were covered with dust and age, but each set of painted eyes seemed to follow me. Left, right, watching my every step. Then one portrait caught my eye. Its glass was cracked. The canvas had peeling edges, but the face was unmistakably similar to mine. Same eyes, same jawline, same expression. I stepped closer, my heart hammered in my chest. The nameplate below the portrait read, "Jonathan Hale, 1894. That wasn't my name, but the resemblance was impossible to ignore. "Who are you?" I whispered. My flashlight flickered, just once. But when the light returned, the portrait's eyes were looking directly at me. Not painted forward, not angled, but turned, shifted, as if the man inside had moved while the light was out. A cold voice drifted down the hallway, this time clear, this time close. "You finally came home." I froze where I stood. Every sound in the house went silent at once. No wind, no settling wood, no distant voices. Only that one sentence echoing through the hallway. "You finally came home." I swallowed hard. My flashlight trembled in my hand. I forced myself to turn toward the voice, slowly, carefully, expecting someone to be standing behind me. But the hallway was empty, just shadows stretching across the floor like long black fingers. I raised my voice. "Who's there?" No reply, only the creaking of the old house shifting under the weight of winter. I moved deeper down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last, like the house didn't want me going any further. Halfway down, the air thickened. Not cold this time, just heavy, hard to breathe, like stepping underwater. My ears rang softly, a low hum, almost like someone whispering right beside my head. But when I turned, no one was there. I kept walking until I reached the last door on the left, the master bedroom. The door was cracked open. just enough for a thin line of darkness to spill into the hallway. I touched the door with my fingertips. It was warm. Warmer than any door in an abandoned house should be. I pushed it open. The room was enormous. High ceiling, tall windows, heavy curtains that swayed even though there was no draft. A four-poster bed sat in the center of the room. The blankets were wrinkled, indented, as if someone had just gotten up. My chest tightened. I stepped inside. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. Hard. The windows blew open at the same time. Wind roared through the room. Snow scattered across the floor. And then, right beside my ear, a whisper so cold it made my skin crawl. "Jonathan?" I spun around. There was no one, but on the wall beside the bed, something new had appeared. Fresh writing, drawn through the frost. Words spelled out by an invisible hand. "Welcome back." My breath fogged in front of me. The temperature in the room had dropped instantly. I backed away from the wall. The frost writing looked too fresh, too deliberate, like someone had written it while I was standing in the room. I whispered to myself, this doesn't make sense. The wind from the open windows finally died. The curtains stopped swaying, and then everything went still again. Not peaceful still, dead still, the kind of silence that presses on your ears. I took a slow step toward the bed. The blanket was still warm. I could feel the heat radiating from it when I touched the edge. Someone had definitely been lying there, recently. I lifted the blanket, nothing underneath, just sheets and an old faded mattress. But while I was bent over, something brushed the back of my neck, light, like fingertips. I shot upright. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Stop it," I said out loud. My voice cracked. A whisper drifted across the room. "Can't." The single word slid through the air like smoke. Not angry, not threatening, just sad. I turned my flashlight toward the corner of the room. The beam flickered, struggled, and then it went out entirely. The room fell into darkness, total black. I tapped the flashlight, but it didn't respond. A soft glow appeared in the far corner. Dim at first, barely visible, then brighter. It looked like the outline of a person standing completely still. Not fully formed, not solid, just an impression of a figure. Tall, thin, watching me. I stepped back until I hit the bed frame. "Who are you?" I asked. The figure didn't answer. It only lifted an arm, slowly, deliberately, pointing toward the doorway behind me. I swallowed hard and turned my head. The door was open now, wide open. The hall beyond looked darker than before, almost blacked out. The figure whispered again, "Don't stay." My pulse spiked. I stepped toward the doorway. The shadows in the hall rippled, shifted, like something was moving inside them, something waiting. The figure in the corner spoke once more. This time, clearer, closer. "Run!" And the shadows rushed toward me. I stumbled backward as the shadows surged toward me. They weren't moving like smoke. They moved like limbs, long, stretching, reaching. I sprinted into the hall without thinking. The temperature dropped again immediately. My breath turned to mist in front of me as I ran. The entire hallway felt wrong, like the air was thicker than it should be, like I was moving through cold water. Behind me, something scraped across the floor, slow, heavy, dragging. I didn't look back. I pushed past old doorways on either side. Their windows darkened with frost. Every light fixture above me buzzed faintly. Some flickered, some stayed dead. The whole motel seemed to breathe. I heard a whisper glide along the walls. "Don't leave us." My footsteps echoed through the hall. But then, I heard another set of footsteps. Not mine, perfectly in sync, matching every step I took. Like something was following so close behind it could touch my back. I picked up the pace. The footsteps did too. I finally forced myself to glance over my shoulder. The hallway behind me was empty, but the footsteps didn't stop. They grew louder, closer, pressed against my hearing like they were right at my ear. I reached the stairs and grabbed the railing. It was ice cold, painfully cold. I started down the steps, taking them two at a time. Halfway down, the buzzing lights overhead went silent. Everything below turned pitch black. I froze. A whisper floated up from the darkness beneath the stairs. Why did you come back? My chest tightened. I didn't, I said before I could think. The voice answered from uncomfortably close. You did. The shadows at the bottom of the staircase shifted, swayed, stretched into a shape that slowly rose upward. Not human, but standing tall like one. I backed up a step. The staircase groaned under my feet. The thing below took a slow, deliberate step upward. The air vibrated with the sound of something cracking. Wood, ice, bones. I didn't wait to find out. I turned and ran back up the stairs. As I hit the landing, a freezing gust blasted down the hallway. All the doors slammed shut at once. Boom, 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 boom. The entire building shook. Then, silence. A whisper crept out from behind one of the doors. A child's voice, soft, faint, terrified. Please don't leave me alone with them. The voice stopped me in my tracks. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But something in that child's tone, fear, desperation, rooted me to the spot. I turned toward the door the sound came from. Room 214. The metal numbers were frosted over, as if the cold was seeping out from inside. A faint shiver passed through the hallway. I stepped closer. My breath clouded in front of me. Hello? I whispered. No answer, just the sound of something soft dragging on the floor beyond the door. Like someone was shifting their feet. I placed my hand on the doorknob. It felt colder than ice. Pain shot up my fingers. But the latch clicked open with almost no effort. The door creaked inward, a long, low groan, like it hadn't been touched in decades. Inside, the room was pitch black. The light switch didn't work. I squinted into the darkness. Where are you? I whispered. Something moved, a faint shape in the corner, small, crouched, trembling. It looked like a child sitting on the floor, knees pulled to their chest, head buried. Are you hurt? I asked. The figure shifted slightly, not toward me. Away, like it was scared of me. I stepped closer. The floorboards creaked under my feet. The air felt heavier than in the hallway, denser, harder to breathe. The child's whisper came out again. Only this time the voice sounded wrong. Stretched, layered, like more than one person was speaking at once. They're coming. My heart dropped. Who's coming? The figure slowly lifted its head. I couldn't see a face, just darkness. A hole where features should be. Everyone, it whispered. Before I could react, the room behind me changed. The door slammed shut on its own. The lights flickered on for half a second, just long enough for me to see the walls. They were covered in handprints, hundreds of them, all smeared in a dark, dried substance, too dark to be dirt. The lights immediately died again. I grabbed the doorknob and tried to pull it open. It didn't budge. The child figure's breathing shifted, slow at first, then faster, sharper, too loud for its size. I felt something move behind me. Not the child, something bigger. The ground vibrated slightly as footsteps approached from the room's far corner. Heavy, slow, purposeful. I swallowed hard. Who's there? No answer. Just breathing. Deep, wet, animal-like. The child spoke again, voice shaking. You shouldn't have come back. My hands trembled as I backed toward the wall. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Something massive exhaled, and the cold air burned against my skin. In the darkness, I could feel it towering over me, leaning in, close enough that I could hear the faint sound of its joints cracking as it moved. I closed my eyes, and the room whispered. From every wall, every corner, every shadow. Stay. I kept my back pressed to the wall. The breathing in front of me grew heavier, warmer, closer. I still couldn't see it. The darkness felt thick, like it was swallowing every trace of light. The childlike figure slowly crawled backward, distancing itself from whatever stood over me. Its whisper trembled. It doesn't like when people move. I froze instantly. The creature let out a low, rattling growl. The sound vibrated in my chest. My instincts told me it was only inches away. I lifted my hands slowly, palms up, showing I wasn't a threat. Something cold brushed the side of my face. Not skin, not fur. It felt like a long, jointed limb, as if bone was wrapped in something thin and stretched. I flinched, just a tiny twitch, but it was enough. The creature snapped its head toward me. I heard the sound, bones shifting and cracking, like its neck bent farther than it should. A hot breath touched my ear. It sniffed me, slowly, deeply. The child voice whispered again from the floor, "Don't run. It likes when they run." I stayed perfectly still. My lungs burned from holding back each panicked breath. Then the creature moved. I could hear its limbs scraping across the floor. 6 of them, maybe more. Each step sounded uneven, like it was dragging parts of itself that didn't fit the shape of a normal body. I sensed it circling me, slow, methodical, testing me. The child figure curled further into the corner, its voice cracked. "It wants to know if you remember." My heart pounded. "Remember what?" I whispered, barely audible. "Remember what?" The child didn't answer. Instead, I heard something press against the wall beside me. A long, sharp point scraped directly under my hand, like a claw, moving back and forth, tracing, drawing a shape. I forced myself to turn my head a little, just enough to see the faintest outline in the dark. The creature was tall, much taller than a human. Its limbs were spider-like, bony, elongated, but its body, its torso, looked wrong. Twisted, bent, as if it had once been human but had been forced into the shape of something else. I couldn't see its face, just a pale glow where eyes should have been. Not bright, just faint enough to hint at their shape. A slow, crawling dread spread across my spine. The creature leaned in closer. Its breath hit my neck. Then, in a voice that sounded like 100 whispers layered together, it spoke. "You were here before." My blood ran cold. I shook my head. "No, I've never..." It cut me off with a clicking hiss. The child suddenly cried out, covering its ears. The walls trembled. The temperature dropped. My breath turned to frost again. The creature lowered itself until its face hovered inches from mine. "You forgot." A long, skeletal hand rose slowly. 2 fingers touched my forehead. My knees buckled as a flash of something hit me. A memory, or the echo of a memory, too quick to grasp, too blurred to understand. But one feeling came through clearly. Pure terror. So much terror that it squeezed my chest and made my vision blur. When I opened my eyes, the creature had backed away slightly. Waiting, watching, expecting me to understand something I didn't. The child whispered one more time, voice nearly gone. "If you remember, it won't let you leave." I fell to my knees. The creature hadn't touched me physically, yet every fiber of my being felt burned. I could feel a memory or something pretending to be one, trying to push into my mind. I shook my head violently, trying to resist it. My vision swam. The walls of the room seemed to twist. Shadows stretched across the ceiling. The child in the corner shivered violently. Its voice cracked. "They don't like being remembered wrong." I tried to stand. My legs felt like lead. My chest felt like it was being squeezed by invisible hands. The creature moved closer. Not fast, slow, careful. It circled me like a predator, whispering dozens of voices layered together. "You came back. You always come back." I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The child stood suddenly trembling. "Don't let it see your fear," it whispered. I nodded, even though I didn't know who I was nodding to. The creature tilted its head. I could feel it studying me, waiting, testing. Then suddenly, it stepped back. The shadow recoiled into the corner of the room. The air lightened just slightly. I could breathe again. The child whispered one last warning. "Leave before it remembers you." I scrambled to my feet. The doorknob was still icy. I pulled. It didn't budge. I slammed my shoulder against the door. Cracked. It opened just enough for me to slip through. I ran down the hallway. Every shadow along the walls seemed to stretch after me. The whispers followed. The cold air chased me. But the child's voice echoed once more. "Go, don't look back. Don't look." I didn't look back. Not once, not even when the doors along the hall slammed shut behind me. Not when the shadows lunged for me at every corner. I kept running, until finally I burst through the front doors of the Holloway mansion. Snow was falling gently, quietly, almost normal. For a moment, I thought it was over, but I knew it wasn't. I had survived the house, but the house had remembered me, and it was still waiting. I stumbled into the snow outside. The cold bit at my skin. Snowflakes clung to my hair and jacket. For a brief second, the world felt normal. Quiet. Still. I looked back at the mansion. Its windows were dark. The front doors were shut tight. No movement. No sound. I breathed in sharply, tried to calm my racing heart. But then I noticed something. A shadow in one of the upper windows, watching me. Not still, swaying slightly like it was breathing. A whisper floated down through the icy air. Remember. I shook my head violently. Not again, I whispered. My legs moved before I could think. I ran down the snowy driveway, past the broken gates, through the frost-covered trees. Every crunch of snow beneath my feet sounded deafening. The mansion stayed behind me. The whispers faded, but a sense of being watched never left. I finally reached my car, keys in trembling hands. I unlocked it and slid inside. The heater kicked in. Warmth hit my face. I pressed my head back against the seat, closed my eyes. For the first time, it felt like I could breathe. Until I glanced in the rearview mirror. The mansion was gone, but in the reflection, a figure stood in the passenger seat. Tall, thin, its face shadowed, featureless. Two faint glows where eyes should have been. The whispers returned, soft, layered, all around me. You can't leave. I slammed the door, turned the key. The engine roared. But when I looked again, the seat was empty. And yet, I knew it hadn't left. It had simply waited. For me to remember. For me to come back. And deep down, I knew I would. I drove through the snow, headlights cutting through the darkness. The road ahead twisted and curved like it had been carved by an unseen hand. I tried to tell myself it was over. The mansion was behind me, the shadows, the whispers, the cold. It was all behind me. But something in the back of my mind refused to let me believe it. The warmth of the car felt unnatural, like it couldn't hold the chill that had followed me. I glanced at the passenger seat again. Empty. Good. I exhaled slowly. The engine hummed, the heater buzzed. And then I saw it in the rearview mirror. The road stretched behind me, completely empty. Except for one thing, a figure in the distance. Tall, thin, moving closer. Slowly, deliberately. I pressed my foot to the accelerator. The car rattled over frozen patches of snow. The figure didn't run. It glided. I glanced down at the dashboard. The clock read 3:03 a.m., just like the night I first arrived at the mansion. Panic surged. I tried to change lanes. The figure mirrored me. I turned left. It turned left. I turned right. It turned right. It was learning, watching, waiting. The headlights illuminated its shape for just a moment. The hollow, featureless face. The glows where eyes should be. The thing that had lived inside the Holloway mansion was not confined to that house. It had followed me, and now it was patient, waiting for the next time I made a mistake. The whispers returned, soft, sad, and terrifying. You'll come back. I gripped the wheel tighter. I drove faster, but deep down I knew it was right. One day, I would come back. And the mansion would be waiting. If this story kept you watching, there's another real horror waiting for you. Click on the screen and don't watch it alone.